Welcome to downtown sunny Largo. It's a little bit before July 4th in 2019, and we do a lot of buying and selling here. We do crystal, china, silverware, bullion, gold, scrap gold, watches, military items. And with that being said, a lot of people come to me all the time. One of the biggest questions I get is, my item's old, why isn't it worth anything? Well, the age doesn't mean it's not worth anything, but the age doesn't necessarily play a factor. Since the 1860s, there's been an industrial revolution, and that's when people started mass producing things all the way back to 1860. So that goes for coins, that goes for jewelry, that goes for watches, it goes for silverware, anything. So in order for things to be valuable, it's not just about the age. Condition is very important, but again, it's the age-old thing, no pun intended, supply and demand. And it basically is there more of a demand for your item than there is a supply? So if you have an item that's a high quality item and there's no demand for it, it's not worth anything. Conversely, if you have an item, let's say it's rare but not necessarily in great shape, but if there's a big demand for it, it could be worth quite a bit. So it's supply and demand. It's not necessarily the age. It's, does somebody want the deal? Here's a story somebody told me a long time ago. The New York subway system was selling all of the coins that they got in their system that weren't quarters, nickels, and dimes or a token. And they had thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pounds of these coins for sale. And I think they wanted a price of somewhere around $1 a pound. At the time, everything was selling for $2 or $3 a pound. So you could have theoretically gone there and doubled or tripled your money. But guess what? They had such a large volume of these coins, you would have had to hire semi-trucks, dump trucks, and workers to load these onto your trucks. You would have had to find a facility to rent or buy to store these coins, and then you would have had to hold all of this merchandise, a vast amount of merchandise, in order to sell it, because the supply was so large and the demand so small. Even though it was a money-making deal, it was undoable because it was not worth it. Basically saying, it's a very large story about how supply and demand affect value. So again, you could have, I'll tell you another story. These are great stories. I bought a Tarpon Springs currency collection from a local dealer. We happen to be in Florida. Tarpon Springs is a small city near me. And I bought 10 notes from Tarpon Springs from this lady. And I paid her $20,000 for the notes, $2,000 a piece, and there were 10 of them. What that means is, theoretically, these notes were going on the market for $3,000 or $4,000 a piece. But what I didn't realize was there was only one note known. What I also didn't know was there was only 2 other collectors. So all of a sudden, you have 10 notes that are theoretically worth $3,000 or $4,000 a piece, but because there's only 2 people willing to buy them, all of a sudden you might sell the first 2 notes for $3,000 or $4,000 a piece, but the other notes after that, they weren't worth that much. I actually ended up losing money on that deal because what happened was I had bought a deal where there was such a small supply and the demand was triple, but when I bought the deal and all of a sudden 10 times the amount, I couldn't keep up with the customers. So now these extremely rare notes became extremely common notes. That can happen in any industry. So you have a rare antique and somebody finds a large amount of these antiques, it could go down in value very quickly simply because you have 100 items, 10 collectors, no demand, too large of a supply. So remember, it's not just the age. The age plays a factor sometimes, but it's condition, supply and demand, and whether or not what the market will bear. So again, I hope this helps, and it just shows you that age does not determine value. Thank you very much.